Welcome to this explainer. We're diving into a concept today that is honestly a little haunting. But before we get into the heavy psychological theory, I want to invite you into a morning routine that might just hit a little too close to home. You know the one where you're just staring at the ceiling, contemplating your entire existence before 8 a.m.
Okay, picture this. You wake up later than you intended. You hit snooze, 3, maybe 4 times? You grab your phone and immediately start doom scrolling, just kind of sickened by the world in front of you. You're looking at influencers, celebrities, these false digital idols. And somewhere deep down you look at them and think, I'm smarter than them. I am way more creative than them. Yet, here you are, totally paralyzed, still stuck in bed, just letting the days slip away.
So eventually you drag yourself out of bed, armed with coffee, genuinely meaning to do some actual work. But instead, this sort of youthful longing carries you away on what's essentially a carousel of procrastination. A few video games, texting your friends, taking a quote-unquote well-deserved nap. You feel like this genius in waiting, right? A once-in-a-generation talent just waiting for the world to discover you. But the harsh reality? You are an artist without art.
And then, bam, evening rolls around. The daily anesthesia of thirst traps and infinite scrolling finally wears off, and you are struck, really struck, right in the gut by the total inadequacy of your life. What have you actually done today? You look at all those people who've accomplished so much. Meanwhile, everything in your life, your relationships, your job, your beliefs, they're all just acceptable. They are never compelling. You drift off to sleep, living the exact same day again and again, just waiting for that magical moment when you'll finally grow up.
Okay, let's dive into this because there is actually a clinical, deeply studied name for this exact paralyzing cycle. The Puer Aeternus. It's one of Carl Jung's most famous psychological archetypes. You might also hear it called the child god, Peter Pan syndrome, or the eternal child. This describes someone who simply refuses to commit to anything. And why? Because committing means surrendering to the actual realities of human existence. It means facing responsibility, failure, disappointment, and ultimately our own mortality.
Jung put this so beautifully, but man, is it tragic. He said, they live the provisional life where one does not exist, really. They are only a spectator, so any experience is ghost-like. Really think about the gravity of that for a second. By deliberately dodging any aim or target, just out of a sheer fear of coming up short, their life becomes perfectly abstract. There's literally not a single trace of actual realization. It's just this disassociative blur leading to nowhere in particular. They become a ghost wandering through their own potential.
Section 1. The Seduction of Potential. Why Neverland Feels Safe.
Now, it's super easy to just judge the eternal child, right? To call them lazy and move on. But if we want to truly understand this, we have to look at the intoxicating allure of living in the what could be. Think about the heavy nostalgia of being the gifted child, and this brilliantly illustrates Sylvia Plath's famous fig tree metaphor. The world offers our youthful selves an absolute abundance of choice. New careers, new countries, new lovers. It's a beautiful image, but it's totally paralyzing. Because picking one fig means the rest rot and fall to the ground. Picking one path means maturity. It means closing doors, risking disappointment, and surrendering to the simple fact that you can't be everything.
And what's wild is how much our culture actually cheers this on. We actively validate this eternal wanderlust. We write endless songs romanticizing the anxiety and thrill of young love, but rarely the mundane, daily rhythms of a committed relationship. We have an entire literary genre, the Bildungsroman, filled with protagonists from Hermann Hesse or Jack Kerouac who fight tooth and nail to remain innocently detached from the world. We romanticize living between the lines of who you could become. And frankly, in an economy that offers very little certainty today, there's almost an illusion of heroism in never having to choose. It feels brave, almost poetic even, to just live on hopes and dreams.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the psychological binary trap the eternal child sets for themselves. On one side, they cling desperately to the illusion of endless potential, that comforting little thought of, well, I could be a great writer if I just tried. But by refusing to ever actually try, they use that illusion as a shield against the deep pain of insignificance and the anxiety of inadequacy. They would literally rather die with their potential completely intact than risk stepping into the arena and finding out they might just be ordinary.
Section 2. The Tragedy of Neverland, the Ghost of the Gifted Child.
But that defense mechanism can't hold up forever. Eventually, the reality of time sets in. So, the crucial point is this heartbreaking reality. The real tragedy of the Puer Aeternus isn't that they lack capability. They are often incredibly creative, articulate, and highly intelligent. They really were the gifted kids in art class who learned way faster than everyone else. The tragedy isn't because they can't achieve great things, it's because they won't.
When their natural talents finally come up short and actually require hard work, they actively choose to resign into potentiality, just to protect their ego.
And because they won't try, they leave behind a massive, heavy trail of abandoned actualities. We're talking stable work, stable housing, finishing an education, committing to a long-term relationship. The eternal child evades all of these, even when these exact opportunities are handed to them on a silver platter. To them, joining the daily rat race is simultaneously overwhelming and somehow entirely beneath them. They look down on the very things that could actually give their life structure.
So instead of building that structure, they retreat right back to Neverland. Here, they often form a merry band of misfits, other adult children, who basically help keep each other petrified in place. They numb that internal twilight calling of something greater with short-lived vices, drugs, alcohol, high adrenaline escapes. And when it comes to romance, oh, they'll seduce partners with grand promises of poetry and entrepreneurship, only to flee at the absolute first flaw. She snores, he lives too far away, literally any excuse to jump ship, because God forbid this might actually be the one, and that would require limiting themselves. So they text, not looking for anything serious right now, and gently ghost them to keep the fantasy alive.
But eventually, right, the charm wears off. The potential sours into complete stagnation. If you find yourself in this cycle, the only way out is not some magical leap, but psychological integration, blending your soaring dreams with grounded everyday reality. So, I have to ask you, how is this integration achieved? How do we actually break the spell of Neverland?
Section 3. The courage to be normal. Extracting the ego.
Let's move to this idea and see how it builds, because this is about entirely reframing what normalcy actually means. True courage and normalcy often look like this: riding the bus, taking night classes, working a shift at the grocery store. Now, these are far from the romantic, cinematic images of a main character in waiting, but embracing this mundane reality is a vital, grounding act of ego death. By actually participating in the real world, you are finally recognizing that there are things larger and, quite frankly, much more important than you and your unfulfilled potential.
It means literally feeling the heat of a crowded room, the loudness of traffic, or, dealing with emails from a genuinely annoyed boss. Every single one of these everyday frictions strikes right at the protective womb of the eternal child. But immersing yourself in society extracts the ego from your mission. As Jung suggested, when you finally step up, maturity, commitment, and responsibility, they do not destroy your dreams. They actually become the guardians for your dreams and values. They provide the solid, real-world foundation you need to actually build them.
And zooming out for a second, we realize that we simply do not have the luxury of just sitting around in our potential anymore. The 21st century is practically screaming for action. Ecological collapse, the rise of political extremism, staggering wealth inequality. The world desperately needs capable, creative, intelligent people who are willing to get their hands dirty and tackle these highly complex issues. There are positions out there, but they require doing things you might not want to do. The world needs your actuality, not just your potential.
Which leaves us with this final uncompromising thought to really let sink in today. Nobody is coming to save you, and nobody will live your life for you. You've danced along the surface of life so far. Now it's time to take the plunge. You have to choose to become the captain of your fate. Decide what you actually care about, accept the friction of the real world, and step fully into the actuality of your own life. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. What piece of your potential are you using to hide from reality today? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Now go out there and make it